Welcome to our Remake December 2020 ambassador call. We're so excited that you are here. We have a really cool call today. And first of all, it's just really exciting because those of you that are here in this call are ambassadors. So as an FYI, when we started the year in 2020, as naive and young as we all were a year ago, these calls were for our ambassadors, just like it is right now. And once COVID struck and the world went haywire and we launched our Pay Up campaign for the critical need to address the attention of what was happening globally with, orders being canceled and garment factories and garment makers being left high and dry, we realized that there was an incredible opportunity to open up our work and our message and our campaigns and our activation to a more public audience so that we could get journalists involved, we could get influencers involved, we could get brands involved. And so what we did starting in April is we opened up these calls and we made them community calls. And so they were accessible to outsiders and anyone in the industry that wanted to join. So what we did, So what we did was we allowed, everybody to come in and hear our message so we could share the word. And as we close the year, we've not closed this off in a negative way, but we've made this more intimate. And this call is just for our ambassador community, because what we want to do today, we're going to speak with some of our community leads in the different parts of the country here in the US. And we're going to talk to them about their organizing work and what being a Remake ambassador and a Remake community organizer has meant to them. And we're going to go through and talk about the incredible work that you as our ambassador community did this year in all of the Remake activations and campaigns. So you can really see the impacts that you've had and can hopefully continue to feel how incredibly important and impactful your work is. So it's so fun to see familiar faces. I just saw Nicholas JB just joined. So everyone, thank you for being here. We're really excited that you're here. I'm going to share my screen real quick so that I can walk you through some of the kind of just highlights of everything that we've been doing and everything that you have to be so proud of this year. And then later, we're going to be hearing from, I should have done this before I shared my screen. And then later, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hearing from these community organizers in New York and in DC so that you can kind of hear about their work and everything that they've been doing. So we're so excited that you're here. Welcome if you're just joining. Congratulations for having survived 2020 thus far. If you're here in any form, that's awesome and a miracle. So we're going to talk about your 2020 impact today as a Remake ambassador. So as you know, which I just talked about, our Pay Up campaign. This was, I think, in my opinion, having been involved for Remake for a couple years now, the most important and impactful work we have done to date, hands down. As you can see, in our original petition, we got almost 300,000 signatures petitioning brands to pay up, to pay their workers. This started with a focus on Bangladesh specifically, because it was where we were seeing an incredible volume of cancellations, of purchase orders being canceled for work that was either in progress or already completed. Garment makers and these garment factories had done work and had committed to do work and were not being paid for that work. And we were not just seeing this in a small way, we were seeing this in billions and billions of dollars. So because of Aisha, our fearless leader, her connections on the ground there in Bangladesh, directly working with organizers and garment factories there and hearing directly from the garment makers themselves, we understood the critical needs. So we launched the Pay Up campaign and focusing on Bangladesh initially. The idea was to hold brands accountable for not paying for these orders. And so we launched this petition as a way to kind of get the recognition out there, get the word out there, and get some attention on this. and you guys helped share this message on social media. You helped share it on your campaigns, you know, in your own ways, in your own groups, in your communities. And that was really, really incredible. So thank you so much for doing that. We unlocked $22 billion with a B, billion dollars in these purchase orders from brands who then committed to pay for this work that was already completed or in progress. And that's no small feat. That's really, really incredible. And it makes a huge, huge difference in the lives of real live human beings. So one thing that we want you to understand in your engagement and your commitment to Remake ambassadorship and activism is that you are impacting human beings who are working in multiple stages in the supply chain in the fashion and apparel industry. And this has a tangible impact. So thank you so much for that. That was like, it's truly incredible. And the work continues with Pay Up Fashion. Caroline, if you could please drop in the chat the link to our Pay Up Fashion site. Pay Up, the hashtag Pay Up campaign was specifically focused on the, you know, the efforts because of COVID to kind of collect on these you know, these purchase orders that had been canceled. But what this brought to light in a glaring way was the systemic issues where this just happens so frequently. Purchase orders are canceled, work is completed that isn't paid for. And so we said, okay, now that we've brought this attention to COVID, how can we carry this forward? How can we continue the Pay Up Fashion work and continue that movement? So if you will please, you know, visit Pay Up Fashion, you will notice this is an important kind of asterisk. You'll notice that there is a petition that we're requesting you to sign on that site. It is different. It's not this original petition that you already signed. It's a new one, because this new petition is calling for these 7 tenets that we're asking for brands and manufacturers to commit to, that we can hold them accountable for. And we need to grow the movement for this ongoing work. So if you haven't signed this petition, it's a different petition. Please do sign it. Please do share about it. Ask your groups, ask your social media network to engage with that. That would be super helpful. Caroline, I can see your face. Will you nod? You can see my screen, right? I'm sharing the screen. Okay, cool. Okay, next we moved into the No New Clothes campaign. And this was so fun because you guys are so freaking creative. This was so fun to see how everybody embraced what no new clothes meant to them. So another important part about Remake's work is we want to be accessible to everyone, no matter where you are on your sustainable fashion journey. If you're just now hearing about this and you don't know what sustainable fashion means, if you have been doing this for a long time and you want new ways to engage or to strengthen your commitment to sustainable fashion, if you are a brand or a designer, or you're a recovering shopaholic, wherever you are in your journey, or if you're just curious, you're not even sure if you want to commit to this, but you want to find out more, we want to be here for everybody. And we need, in order for the sustainable fashion movement to be sustainable, it has to be accessible to everyone. And so I always try to make this clear, and I encourage you in your ambassador work to make this clear to anyone who asks you about this. Sustainable fashion is not about perfection. It's not what we're asking for. We're asking for you to kind of engage, get creative, look for tips and tricks, and find ways that you can make changes in your own life, in your own consumption, whatever that means to you. So what was really exciting about No New Clothes, we had 1,100 pledge takers, and we kind of did, obviously it's a little bit generalized, but we did a calculator so that we could estimate what kind of impact would this have if 1,100 people commit to 90 days of not buying new clothes. What would that look like in terms of water saved and CO2 emissions prevented and waste not going to the landfill, and money saved on your wallet, right? So we calculated those impacts here, and it's really incredible. To me, the most important one being the CO2 emissions because of the climate crisis and how impactful that is. But no new clothes can mean so many things. And you guys shared, and we had such a fun call, ambassador call, where you guys talked about what no new clothes meant. Maybe it meant swapping with your friends. Maybe it meant buying only used and thrifting. Maybe it meant repairing what you had. Maybe it meant renting. You know, there's all kinds of ways to do no new clothes. But ultimately what it most absolutely did mean was not buying new clothes, right? And there's so many fun ways to do that and still get creative. So you guys committed to that. And a lot of you have been bragging, which I love, about how you've carried it on. You went even longer than 90 days. We have on our team, our social media manager, when you see all our amazing posts on Instagram, Lindsay Casella has gone more than 500 days with no new clothes. That's like so amazing. And not that I'm holding anyone to that, but I think that's so inspiring, because I think it just shows that it is something that we can rise above, and we do have the power to still be super cute and super fashionable and express our own identity and find ways within our budget and our lifestyle to commit to no new clothes. So that's super exciting. Please continue to share, your journey in sustainable fashion and how you wear your hashtag, wear your values. We always want you to tag that so that people can learn more about that by clicking on the hashtag. And continue to make no new clothes commitments in smaller ways. Maybe at the start of the new year, you commit for 30 days, or, you find ways to do that. Keep it up, and please continue to share about that. We love that. Okay, so the exciting part of our call, because you've been listening to me talk for 15 minutes. Today, we are going to hear from two very important groups. Every group is important. We're going to hear from two of our groups, our community organizer groups. We're going to hear from the NYC team and the DC team. And so we're going to hear from these amazing people, some unique insights into how they got together, why they chose to step into a community organizer role, what it means to them, creative ideas, how they've implemented it, and how they have really been nimble and creative with the restraints of the pandemic to be able to take a lot of these activities online, and how you can too, how you can use these ideas to connect with your community, to connect with your peers, to still do the very important work that we do at Remake. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see the beautiful faces of these people. And I'm first going to call on the DC team. So if Victoria and Riza are here, if you could please unmute yourselves so we could see your beautiful faces. Cool.
Hello.
Hi, cool. I want everyone to see your face. So can you guys, this is our DC team. Can you guys just give a quick introduction of yourself, and I'm gonna ask you some questions about your work.
Hi, I'm Riza. I am one of the community organizers with Victoria. I actually live in Maryland, right outside of DC, and I've been with Remake for a little over a year now, but really excited to be here.
Yay! And Victoria's cat is screaming. That's okay, Victoria. We can hear your cat real quick while you just say hi and tell us your name.
He's like a ticking time bomb. Hi, I'm Victoria. Very distracted by my cat, sorry. I was in DC for 7 years before moving back to Ohio for quarantine, but during that time I was an ambassador for about a year before becoming a community organizer. Met up with Riza a grand total of 2 times before the pandemic, but we've had a great run as community organizers, and we're really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and Victoria does a ton of amazing work for us on the Remake team, helping with a lot of other initiatives as well. So everybody that we are so fortunate to be connected with and involved with has such an impact in a real way. So I want to continue to highlight that. So we'll give Victoria a little bit of a break for her kitty cat. So I'll pose the first question to you, Riza. Kind of talking about, and Victoria just mentioned that you guys had only met up a total of 2 times before the pandemic hit, and you really had to pivot and get creative about, how are we going to do this? What does this mean, for us being the hosts and leading, a community group with these restraints? So I know you were able to, kind of have a couple of things that started, but then once the pandemic hit, you guys were able to bring some of the activities online. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about how you adapted and what that meant for your event plans.
Okay, sure. So before the lockdown, we had actually reached out, we had introduced ourselves to all of the ambassadors in the DC region, and just to introduce ourselves and also get to know them. So I remember sending out a survey, and so it was good that we got that out. So we had met once with a few of the ambassadors, Drew Mill actually, who's one of the Chicago community organizers, was one of the people we had a chance to meet. And I remember meeting and we were like just so excited to do all these things like in DC, like how are we gonna engage the community? And everyone had different interests. So we were really like pumped. And then the lockdown happened. So in order to pivot, like we still like reached out and stayed in touch with ambassadors and started doing virtual hangouts. So we did those monthly. And based on everyone's interest, we just brainstormed, like it was really like good mental health like check-in too, because like the first months of quarantine was really tough. But like yeah, we would meet maybe like once a month, just see what everybody was interested in. Maybe like 5 ambassadors would attend like on average. But it was from then I think everyone still wanted to make a difference and to you know, there was so much going on with like the Pay Up campaign around that time. So we like let's see, we like from those meetings we really like were able to like ramp up our efforts, like and host like small business series, like we did Made in America and Made in Mexico film screening. So yeah, I mean, that was a little bit winded, but we just basically we got together and it was really nice to meet our fellow ambassadors like virtually and like build good relationships from that.
And I want you to go back for just a minute to talk about the individual survey that you did, because I thought that was so interesting that you took the time, you created a survey to send out to the individual members in your group to get to know them better. And you said that like seeing those insights from the individuals, you know, the ambassadors in the DC area really helped you to get to know them better. And I think that could be a cool tip for some of our other community leads. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah. So we, I don't remember all of the questions, but we basically like asked them like where they, you know, where they live, why they joined Remake, how long they've been with Remake, what their goals are for Remake, and what types of activities they hope to do. We even asked them like what their skills are. So like if there's anything they want to bring to the community, like, you know, if somebody is great with like marketing or event, like has hosted events before. So from that, we like got a really great snapshot of like about 11 ambassadors. And, you know, one thing about DC is like the group that we have, it's not like, you know, your typical like fashion professionals or anything like that. Like everyone comes from different backgrounds, but like it was interesting to see like, you know, like we had a lot of like public health, you know, professionals who were like coming at Remake from like that angle. We had people from who were like influencers, and yeah, so like from that we were able to kind of like start brainstorming, like maybe we should do like a small business series, or maybe we should you know, there were a lot of ideas and we didn't know how long quarantine would be, so some of them were like we were really like we were like dreaming, and it was exciting. So
and you brought up something important, which was that, and I want you and Victoria to speak to this, because you were coming from a public health space and Victoria's coming from public policy. And so, you know, we chatted about this, how a lot of people think, oh, sustainable fashion, like that doesn't really have anything to do with me or my interests or what I'm into. And not only did you find that, you know, through, you know, your story and what interested you and how you and Victoria connected, who, you know, who also hadn't necessarily been coming from that space professionally. You guys were able to connect and lead this community, and you found people within, you know, ambassadors within your community that weren't necessarily working, you know, directly in fashion. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that, oh, well, if I'm not a fashionable person or I'm not really into brands and fashion, this isn't really for me. So could, you know, and I would give Victoria a chance to talk, because then I also want to cover the conversation that she and Aisha are having in the chat. But Victoria, could you kind of talk about that? Because you started actually with, you know, being inspired to write a book about fashion, and, you know, still worked in, you know, to study public policy, and you've kind of come back in and out of it. So can you talk to ambassadors who are watching that might think, oh, well, I don't really need to step into a leadership role because, you know, I'm not too involved in fashion directly, or I don't really know much because it's not my area of expertise, you know, kind of how you and Riza got together to lead this organization?
Sure. First of all, I'm not much into the like presenting myself aesthetically in terms of fashion. Like, this is my quarantine uniform. I got this from an ethical brand, and I'm wearing Girlfriend Collective leggings, and that is what I wear like 5 days a week, except for the weekends. So as Rebecca said, I am in public policy right now as a grad student at Georgetown, doing online school for my last year. And reason I became community organizers back when I was still working in fundraising for Georgetown, my alma mater. And at the time, neither of us are still in, like, we don't work in fashion still. But we both appreciate it from so many different angles. And one thing we have in common that's a really strong passion is health and well-being. Yes, leggings and sweatshirts are a must. So health and well-being, we both do a lot of stuff in our professional and personal lives relating to that. And that's one thing I wanted to lift up a lot, was how interdisciplinary fashion was to me. And I've never thought of it as just clothing. So like July 7th, 2017 is when I formally started my like first real adult job. And that's when I like decided like quit buying new, except like for necessities. And ever since then, at that time, I was trying to write a book about sustainable fashion, but I put it on hiatus because I had so much else to learn. And I have learned so much by working with Remake and meeting so many different people. But one thing I really, really think about all the time is how interconnected like health is to fashion, to labor rights, to people's well-being, to also how fun it is. So the reason I'm very interested in fashion, and I pivoted my career from like healthcare administration to try to do public policy research and then funnel that to somehow interconnect with the global fashion supply chain, which is really kind of like a mind twister right now as I'm about to graduate, is because fashion is such an easy thing to connect with people about, because we all wear, I shouldn't say all, most people wear clothes. And so that's one thing you have in common with most people is clothes. And it's so easy to talk about, and so easy to direct the conversation towards labor, the environment, or the health and well-being of people who work on the supply chain, and so many different things. Like even if you're interested in law, like that is a huge thing in fashion. So that's why I'm interested in what Remake does, and that's why I've stuck with it so long. I think I became an ambassador in like 2018 or 19, and I've just kept with it and like kept getting more and more involved. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm like, wow, people are shading brands in the comments. Okay, yeah, and I'm really happy that everybody here is an ambassador and getting more involved. Also, I dropped the Discord link to the Remake gaming Discord server in the chat. So if you use Discord and you like to game, join the Discord and we can get like a group together to play online.
That's such a good example of interdisciplinary, right? Like how you're bringing, you know, gaming and your you know, intersectionality with public policy and health and everything into fashion. You know, everything truly is connected, you know, on this planet, because we all, you know, breathe oxygen and drink water, and, you know, we're all part of the environment. So anything that we're doing to the environment absolutely directs us, and anything that we're doing to other human beings also directly affects us. So that's awesome. And I love how articulately you spoke to the intersectionality of everything. And I think that's just such a cool and important reminder for anyone who's watching this as an ambassador and might not think they have a role in sustainable fashion, to understand that you truly do have a place, and there are intersectionalities with whatever you're passionate about or knowledgeable about, but also to keep that in mind as you're sharing with your community and you're trying to grow your community organizations and help recruit ambassadors, to be able to explain that message and talk about, you know, how sustainable fashion is connected to social justice, to human rights, to environmental justice, you know, to economic policy, to environmental policy. to trade laws, to, corporate regulation. It's really connected to everything. So we encourage you to jump in and offer your insight. And in fact, you are probably even more valuable in this movement if you're coming from the outside, because you can offer that outside perspective and help educate the sustainable fashion community about those externalities and how that's affecting the inner workings of the industry. So thank you guys so much. That's really awesome. I also just want to give a shout out to Ruby Verdiano, because Riza, you mentioned that you got involved with Remake just for, being inspired by that. And so I want you to speak to that real quick, because I think it's so important that you never know who you're influencing. And that's why your work as an ambassador is so important too.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I have been interested in fashion since like 8th grade or 7th grade. I love the history of fashion, and I dreamed of going like to FIT. That was like the first school I researched because my older siblings were in college. So I was like researching with them. So anyways, I always wanted a career in fashion. Well, not always, but for around that time, I thought that was what I wanted to do. And then with my background, Asian American family, my parents highly discouraged it. So, and then I think over time too, like I think I saw, well, maybe I'd be better as a nurse or a teacher or something like that. So I started pursuing other options for college. And I remember, actually haven't told Ruby this, but I was at a conference in undergrad, and she spoke. It was in New York City, and it was at, I think, Fordham University, and Ruby spoke about the power of like using your voice. And I always remember that speech. That really resonated with me because I was somebody who was pursuing like healthcare and trying to be a physical therapist, but like there was always like this interest in like global affairs and women's rights, and like in the back of my mind I was like, oh, that's just like, and like it was always there and I couldn't like turn away from it. So long story short, like I think like even after I graduated college, I would just like continue to follow Ruby and see what she was up to. And also like aside from that, like I did start hearing of like learning about sustainable fashion from a labor rights fair trade organization. So like after meeting like some garment workers in undergrad, like I learned about like the atrocities of the garment labor industry, and still I pursued what I was doing in healthcare, but like it was always in the back of my mind. And I think just seeing like somebody who like looks like me pursuing a career in fashion, that was always really inspiring. So I learned about Remake through Ruby's Instagram, and that's how I joined.
That's so beautiful. And Ruby chatted in that she had no idea that she had been part of your journey. And so that's why it's so important. That's why you just never know who's listening, who's following your social media, who's going to hear that one message at the right time that it really resonates with them, and send, and that your message could send that person on a whole new trajectory. That's like, Ruby's actually crying right now. That's actually like, that's so amazing, the power that we have to do that. And another thing that you said, Riza, that's so important is you said you were inspired because you saw somebody like you. And that is so critical in our work, that everyone is represented, that everyone feels like they have a place here, that they belong. And so having the diversity of voices and perspectives and experiences, and just diversity of humans involved in this makes such a big difference, because you never know who sees you and says, I can do this too. Thank you so much. That's so awesome. So I want to save time for the NYC team. So thank you so much, Victoria and Riza, for your very hard work. Thank you for sharing. Keep it up. You guys rock. You probably inspired a lot of people today on the call, so that's awesome. I'm going to hand it over to our NYC team. Can I get Tessa and Emily to say what up?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Curly-haired girls are in.
Welcome, yay. So this is our dynamic powerhouse team that is leading the NYC group, and they committed to organizing yet again for another year in 2021. So we're stoked about that. So happy to have them. And we're going to talk to Tessa and Emily not only about how they're organizing in their NYC area and some really cool like hybrid sort of events they've been hosting, but also how they've used their community to connect with the university group, which I saw Sumedha commented just now in the comments about getting involved with university students. So we're going to talk about that and how you can use your community group to do that. So awesome that you said that, and really cool that we're going to chat about that. So ladies, you also, kind of, got, started shortly before during the kind of swirl of, the pandemic craziness and the world really changing. And you came up with what I want you guys to talk about today is I definitely want you to give a quick intro to yourselves, and then talk about how that got you to be really creative and thinking about, how you can host some interesting ways of bringing people together. So if you could each give us just like a quick, Emily, your face is the biggest looking at me right now. So let's let you go first and just kind of talk about a little bit about your story and how you got involved with Remake.
Sure. So I became an ambassador in 2018 of, I want to say like November. And I went to Drexel University and I did my co-op internship. It was like a 6-month-long internship with a brand called Article 22, which is a jewelry brand that makes jewelry from the bombs that were dropped in Laos during the Vietnam War. So it was an amazing experience working with local artisans in Laos and upcycling jewelry and all these different amazing closed loop circular fashion. And they had a pop-up with Remake. And I, at the time, was still living in Philadelphia at Drexel, and I trained in to come to one of the events. And it was a panel underneath, I think it was an Athleta store in New York. And I absolutely fell in love just immediately with just finding a community that really resonated. Like I was not privy to this in college. My university did not have classes on sustainability, on fashion, and on any of that kind of stuff. So I was very my own self-taught, which I'm sure a lot of people are. So once I experienced this community, I wasn't going anywhere. I purposely applied to jobs in New York City so I could move to New York and become part of the Remake community. That is literally what I did because I just like fell in love with just the energy that all of you have in this community in general. So I've been a Remake ambassador since then, and then I started as a co-community organizer with Tessa in September, actually. So we have never actually met, but we've become the closest friends, which is crazy. We have like meetups, just her and I, about once a week, and then just trying to build the New York ambassador community up and trying to create as much events and things and that we can bring to the table for everybody. So
yeah, you have been crazy busy since September.
Yeah.
Tessa, tell us your side of the story.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, shout out to all the other community organizers. We love you. And all of the ambassadors and the whole Remake team. So my background was, I was involved with Remake once, basically through another ambassador, which is a common thread here, but through the wonderful Yimin Dung, who was an early ambassador with the team, and he brought in Aisha, big love to you as well, to participate in this Sustainable Fashion Summit that I was organizing, and that Yimin was participating in. So I met her and was just wowed by everything, that she spoke about. I got so much of a deeper perspective through about Remake through Aisha and through having her participate and being blessed with her presence and everything. So at the end of the summit, I remember Aisha came up to me and she was like, "You should become an ambassador." And I was like, "I would love to." So I joined in like, maybe I'm gonna say September of 2019, I believe. Could mess up that date, and then I eventually became a community organizer within maybe like 4 months of joining as an ambassador, and started out, got to have like a couple in-person events, either participating in or hosting within the New York community, and then the pandemic hit. And I was overwhelmed with work and everything else. And Sam brought in Emily, who could be a co-community organizer with me, which I was like so excited to have her join. And DC really modeled this co-community organizer kind of concept for us, and it's worked so well with them. DC team has been like a powerhouse team. And so Emily joined, we were able to work together. And then my personal background went to FIT, studied fashion business management with like ethics and sustainability minor, and kind of veered away from the industry a little bit, seeing how I couldn't find a niche where I like felt like no company felt like they're doing enough. And it's hard, we all like have different perspectives on this, but it's hard to find where you can really feel impactful. So I'm now working as a customer experience associate for sustainable personal care company called By Humankind. So.
Cool. Yes, that's so awesome. And yet again, the DC team inspired you guys. So Ruby inspired Risa, and Risa and Victoria got together and inspired you and Emily. And as the cycle and the chain goes on, and everybody benefits from it and we build on it. That's so awesome. So I noticed also that Tanya is in the chats, chatting in, catch her in the style, Tanya Peck, she's here. And one of the really cool events that you guys hosted was this like awesome hybrid sort of like unexpected event where you had the Brooklyn Public Library and ISA New York, and you had Tanya speak, and you guys hosted. And it was so amazing because I remember learning about that event and thinking like, well, where does the public library come into this? And how did this come into play? And, how did this work? And, one of the things that we've been talking about in this call is the importance of the intersectionality of events and kind of bringing other people into the conversation who say, oh, sustainable fashion, that doesn't really have anything to do with me. And we say, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Here's how, check it out. And I remember in that event, so many of the comments in the chat that you guys hosted was like, light bulbs flashing. I had no idea this was happening in the fashion industry. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. And so I want to stress that sometimes it is even more valuable to bring in people who aren't already in this movement so they can learn from it. So how did you guys get involved in that event? What did that look like? What tips and tricks can you share for other organizers of how to create really cool, interesting events like that?
Yeah, so basically we got involved with ISA New York through Yuman again, one of my favorite people in the world. And he had initially been in conversation with ISA when he was a community organizer for New York City. And they were looking at like pulling an event together, collaborating. He knew ISA, one of the two co-founders, I believe Julia, if not both Julia and Willa. He was connected with them, and once he left, he's now, in grad school, and kind of passed the torch on to the next community organizers. He passed along this chain, and, ISA was ready to jump back in and wanted to host an event together and at least have one of our films involved in one of their events. So we connected with them, and actually it's kind of a perfect thread for this conversation. When Emily and I first had a conversation with Willa, in just starting to plan this event and see how we could be involved together beyond the screening itself, ISA, or Willa in general, was saying how it's the nature of this community is such that like we want to amplify each other's efforts. Like we want to help, we want to collaborate however we can, because we got a common goal here, so I think that's really, really special and unique to this like, sustainable, ethical fashion movement, because there's such this like concept of the fashion industry being very cold and, throwing elbows, trying to make your way up. It's all like, independent effort. And first of all, that's not really how anything gets done, but especially within this movement, like community makes all the difference here. And people are just extra willing to work together. So with ISA, Willa was saying, yes, please, like, I'd love to have you jump in. Yes, let's do a panel, like, and basically ISA New York had a special grant with the state and was working with the Brooklyn Public Library. So that collab was already happening. And so she brought in Remake as well to kind of do a trio collaboration for this Made in America screening and this mending workshop kind of paired together.
And I was so cool because Tanya and I remember we stayed on to watch the mending workshop, and we were both like, oh my God, this is so cool. We had no idea how to do this. It was so like, even, I've worked in sustainable, in the fashion industry for 13 years, but I don't know how to darn, socks and all that. So I even learned so much. So that was awesome. That's so great. Yeah. And I think that, you can never underestimate, the way to find, some synchronicity from other groups and what interests them and, what we have to offer at Remake. And you brought up a great point, Tessa, which is that you also use the film as kind of a way to, you know, quickly, the Made in, you know, the Made in US, the Made in America film, to kind of quickly paint the picture of, you know, what is the scope of this? What's going on here? What is our role? You know, what are we trying to do? So I definitely encourage other ambassadors to use those Made in series as an incredible tool to tell people, you know, in a very succinct and very impactful way, what we're about and what we're doing and why it's so important. You know, we put so much work and love into those films, and they really are impactful because you just, the emotion behind them. I remember after we screened it, like a lot of people were crying and just saying, you know, oh my gosh, that was so moving. So I encourage everyone to use that as a tool to connect and to communicate our mission. So I mentioned that Sumaid had chatted in the comments about university students. So Emily, I also want you to talk about, you know, you talked about your alma mater, how you went to Drexel to study fashion, and then you found some cool ways actually to reconnect with, you know, your, you know, professors that are still there that are teaching fashion, and how to create, you know, kind of a partnership with Remake to host some events and to help invite the students in and educate them. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, and Samantha actually just she messaged me about how we can connect about resources and everything. So I just wanted to say how easy this is to do. So you graduate from your college and maybe you had the experience like me where this conversation wasn't spoken about a lot. So I was kind of adamant to make it a conversation at my university. So I reached out to one of my old teachers who actually ended up becoming the director of design and merchandising at Drexel. And we got to talking, got into kind of like what their curriculum is, what we can bring, knowing that I'm a co-community organizer. And I think at the time I was just an ambassador, and how we can bring more of these conversations to Drexel in panels, in just discussions where I just talk to a class. And I know that might be intimidating. I definitely am not one who loves public speaking, but at the end of the day, I mean, Zoom wise, it's so much easier too. If you're trying to dip your toes in, like just talking to a class, being like, hey, I have this experience in this, these are some things, and we can talk about. And also, like Rebecca, you were saying, a lot of these films are such a great tool. We can screen the film with the students and have an open dialogue. So answering questions and kind of knowing what the best route is to talk about this topic. And Remake, it also gives great resources for these different topics. So if you're worried about what to say, we have sheets and like ambassador resources that make it easier to have these conversations and gives you exactly like what you would need to say. But I've loved it so far. We had had 2 panels so far. We had one with Aditi Mayer and Jordan from Boyish Jeans, who was just incredible. Such a great conversation. And we watched the Made in America film. Our second panel was about pay up fashion, and we had like the founder of We Are Ha, which was amazing. And we're hoping to continue this after the new year and everything. And it just is so much easier than you would think to get started. And if you have this passion, like a lot of these ambassadors in our community do, then I really recommend you to span out the conversation. So I talked to Rebecca previously that like we were discussing that we love our bubble. We love talking to each other about the things that we love and sustainability and ethical fashion all together. But we need to try to break from that bubble and explain it to people who necessarily don't have this conversation regularly, and expand our knowledge to other people so that we can make this movement even bigger. And reaching out to your college, you can bring in more ambassadors and create maybe your own community, and someone can become a community organizer. It's just a snowball effect that just having one conversation can really lead to.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool. And it's just, you know, I also want you to tell, I think some people watching, you mentioned that you had Jordan from Boyish Jeans and Charlene, the founder of We Are Ha, speak. I'm sure some people are just curious, how did you make that happen? And you know, how did you choose to have to speak, and how did you connect with them? So if there's any ideas or insight or tips you could offer, anybody watching who might be like, ooh, how do I do that?
Yeah. So I work closely with Sam Harmon, who is awesome. And like I said, everyone on the community, like Tessa said, everyone in this community is trying to help one another. So even putting out feelers and talking about asking who you think would be good for this role or to connect to this one topic, everyone's kind of on the same page to help one another. And just picking a topic. So pick a topic and then see if you know or think of anyone in that realm. And we can hopefully as a community make that happen to speak to a larger audience with that one panelist or few panelists that you'd like to have on.
Yeah, awesome. And Sam, offered that in the chat as well, that, everybody's super willing and eager to engage. And you have so many resources, guys. If you want to, directly email or chat or connect with Aisha or Sam or Caroline or me or the community organizers that have spoken today, please, please, please do that. Connect with us through email, which, we all share if you're a Remake ambassador, through the Google Drives where you can connect to resources for everything. You can join our Slack channel. Obviously, these calls are important, but definitely connect with each other. Oh, thank you. Victoria's sharing Instagrams too for people to connect with. Instagram is an awesome way to follow and support each other and see what work you're doing. But definitely reach out to us one-on-one, because we are, as Emily shared, we're all eager to support this, because any way that we can support you is supporting all of our manifesto. And also, I should just put her email in the chat, because Micah, who I connected with last week actually very briefly, was asking how specific questions about how can we do more outreach to Black women and how are we connecting. So if you have an idea or a question for a certain group that you want addressed, or a certain idea for an event or whatever, please bring that to us, because the value of this community is you, every single one of you personally. That's what makes this movement work, and that's what brings fresh ideas to the table, and how we can connect and grow our movement. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Thank you so much, Emily and Tessa, for sharing. You guys are amazing. More claps and cheers and props to you guys. Your work is so awesome, and we're so grateful for it. Okay, guys. I'm going to share my screen one more time so that I can walk you through some exciting, oh, hold on, let's see, resume my share. So I can walk you through some more exciting events that are coming up for the end of year, and a great way to kind of wrap up your 2020 in a more positive way. Let me pull this up here, hold on, so that you can understand kind of, what's going on, how you can be engaged, the great ways for you to, continue to some more fun stuff to kind of lead us into 2021. So let me share my screen one more time. I keep trying to, and it's not, okay, cool. There it goes, finally. So next up, let me show full screen. There we go. So you guys can see everything. Cool. So next up, in just 2 days, we are having a very, very fun, exciting end of the year party to celebrate, the work that, we're doing for Remake, and to connect with each other and to have fun and to drink cocktails and see stylists in action and to get all kinds of good tips. So this is our Cocktails for a Cause and Styling event with 2 special guests, Tanya Peck, I have mentioned earlier in the call, of Catcher in the Style, and Tara Sweenan, who's going to be joining us as a celebrity stylist. So there's all kinds of fun things that you can win and engage with this. Caroline will put a link to the chat of how you can sign up for this. We mentioned this in our last call. This is a fundraising event. So the purpose and the effort behind this event is to fundraise for Remake, for all of our efforts and for our work. So you can help sell tickets to fundraise for this event and guarantee your own spot. You can help sell a lot of tickets and get donations and qualify to win free house alcohol and a free styling session with Tara. So there's a lot of really cool things in store. So please check out the link in the chat. See if you can get engaged with that. I know it's only 2 days away, but there's still an opportunity. Other great ideas that we brought up in our last call is that you could potentially ask for a ticket to this as a Christmas present from someone. If you don't need any more stuff and you don't need anything wrapped under the tree, but you want to donate to causes that you care about and that you're really passionate about, this could be a really cool way to do that. We also have, a end of the year ambassador program survey coming. So I see some familiar faces in there of people that I see join the call already. I see Stella, and I know she's on here, and I see Emily, and I know she's on here. So very fun. As I mentioned, there was chats coming in, and this is so helpful. Somebody mentioned how to connect with older women. You mentioned how to connect with Black women. Sumeda mentioned how to connect with universities. So we're going to have a survey that's coming out towards the end of the year, which gives you, another way to give your feedback and to engage and to offer up, suggestions, comments, requests. One thing when Riza and Victoria and I were chatting is they requested more programs around how to moderate. So more tools like Ruby hosted earlier this year, moderating workshops, things like that. So please keep an eye out for this. As I keep mentioning, your feedback and your comments and your engagement is so critical to our mission, to supporting what we're doing, to helping us understand where we can dig deeper or cast our net wider, who we need to be connecting with, who we can be pulling into this movement, other voices we need to hear. This is so, so, so important. So be on the lookout for this, and please do engage with it. And I love this picture of Erica. She's always on our calls too. Thank you so much, Erica, that got included here, because she's always styling her rented and borrowed secondhand looks on her Instagram. She's one of the members of Role Models Management, which is just an awesome another group that we connect with. So I just want to say thank you guys again for being here. Please continue to share your feedback. Please continue to ask questions and offer advice. I'm just going to read this because I think it's important that I should just add it into the chat, that we're also working on tech solutions and creating an ambassador-only portal in 2021. So it is valuable to take this, that you've made this commitment, one step further to be an ambassador, because we have a very large following on social media and community. But by becoming an ambassador, you do have these inside resources. You do have this intimate community of people to connect with. You are able to make an impact in a really big way. So thank you guys so, so, so much. Shout out to the Remake team who's on here right now: Chelsea, Sam, Caroline, Aisha, others who can't be on the call right now but are part of the team as well. That you got to hear from Jesse on our last call, and Lindsay, who's fearlessly behind our Instagram, just creating like a machine and sharing so much amazing information. Katrina, who heads up our PR team. Anyone who I'm not mentioning, you're all so amazing, and your work is so, so, so important. So thank you for being involved in whatever way you are. It's impactful, whether you feel like it or not. You never know who's hearing your story and being inspired, and who sees themselves in you. Thank you, Sam. And who sees themselves in you. So please continue to keep up this important work. Know how much we value you and appreciate you and love you. And go continue being an awesome human in 2021. Fingers crossed. It can't be worse than 2020, right? We've made it this far. So we're really excited about everything coming up. Please join us in 2 days on December 9th for our event, and just keeping awesome. We love you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all your hard work. You guys are the reason we do this, and we love you. The garment makers and you are the reason we do this. Thanks so much, guys. Happy 2020. Happy holidays. We're excited to see you in 2021. Take care, everybody. Bye.